have you paid student loans and how much have you paid? Because I just went and looked at how much I owe versus how much I paid. I graduated a decade ago and I owed $50,000, right? And I said, you know what? I'm just going to be consistent. I'm going to pay my bill. And, eventually that amount will go down. And I have paid 200 something dollars a month since then, right? 200 something a month. It has been 10 years later. I started at 50,000. It's at 47,000, right? I've paid 25 plus $1,000 since I graduated college, and it's only down 3. It's not making sense. It's not making sense. $200 is already a nice sized bill. What do you want me to do? Why does it have to be so aggressive? I'm not understanding. I'm trying to pay the money back. I'm giving you what I got. You know what I'm saying? Am I supposed to be paying it for the rest of my life? Do I have to pay $1,000 a month to see progress? Like, it's getting out of hand.
So I owed $150,000 in student loan debt. It's more than it. They done added an extra $20,000 alone just on interest. So I thought I only owed $150,000. Why I owe $175,000? Over the course of 10 years, this lady has paid over $25,000, and it still has not made a dent in her loan. You mean to tell me you want me to pay $25K just for you to put a dent of $3,000 in my loan? Her loan was $50,000, and then she's only at $47,000 10 years later. And y'all mad at me because I got mine in deferment. It's gonna stay there. Because when I tell y'all I would never be able to pay these loans back unless I hit the lottery. That's it. They knew I ain't had the money when I asked them can I borrow it. But at this point, that's on y'all, not me.
I graduated college 4 years ago. Okay, since that day I graduated, I've been paying off my student loans, right? One of them in particular was like 11 grand. Obviously I had to do it for classes, and I go 4 years later onto my account to kind of see, like, what do I owe? I pay monthly on this thing. 11 grand. Okay, let's do the math. I look, my payoff quote is over $13,000. So no matter what I've been paying, I somehow now owe 2 grand more because the interest rates are so high. Do you understand how impossible it is for somebody getting out of college to start a life with that much debt? Who? Is that a good idea? No. And I'm not gonna lie, I was 18 years old getting into college. And if you're in college, look at your interest rates.
Let's talk for a minute when people say things like, I was 18 years old when I took out these loans, or I was a high school student, maybe as young as 17, and I didn't understand what I was getting into. A lot of people will say, well, you're the one who signed on the line. You couldn't tell it was $50,000 in debt? Sure, they understood that. Well, we hope they understand that. We know there's some students who go to school and don't even bother to know what the total balance is, okay? We're really not talking about that because their issues will come later. We're talking about the ones that do sign on. Yes, I understand I'm taking out $50,000 to get this degree. But then you hear them right after graduation go, I knew I was taking out $50,000, but I took it when I was 18. I didn't have a concept of what I was doing. But they're really talking in code for. They didn't understand, they were not aware just how hard they were going to have to work to pay off the debt. In other words, going beyond mom's and dad's allowance of, hey, I'll pay you a few bucks if you, do chores around the house. Okay, I'll pay you some money for that. That may have been the most amount of work they've ever had to do. Now then, let's take a look at the students who don't go to college. Okay, let's put them in their early 20s. Instead of going to college, they spend 3-4 years working. They have a better concept. The students who have not gone to school, in my opinion, overall, will have a better concept and understanding of just what it takes to make $1, just what it takes to make $500 to pay off a $1,000 bill. Which is why oftentimes people who do not go to school, they get introduced early into the, what should we say, the school of hard knocks, sort of the street smarts. They get introduced to that early. The kids who go to school are kind of, held up in that college bubble, not really having to understand yet about what it takes to what it takes to pay off a bill. So therefore, it makes it really easy to take on student loans. Whereas the kids who went to the school of hard knocks right after high school was over, by the time, let's just pick an age, 22 years old, respectively, the kid who's 22 and fresh out of college, has never had to pay a bill, is an absolutely shock. I didn't understand what I was doing. They didn't understand how much they were going to have to work to pay off the bill. But the kid who did not go to school clearly understands it. And I think oftentimes students who did not go to school and decided to skip college, or perhaps even went to college in their later years, perhaps they did that, can actually wind up financially ahead of a kid who went to school and is now racked up with tens of thousands in student loan debt.
There's no question that I made some not so smart decisions and got too many credit cards. At the end of the day, when you're taking responsibility for those things and trying to work and hustle and work really hard to try to pay those things off, I think that that's where the debt-free community that I've been a part of has been so supportive and offering really great advice and motivation to try to help you try to pay it off as quick as possible. A lot of people missed in that video that the vast majority of my debt is student loan debt. And the part of the debt that is not student loan debt, that's consumer debt, credit cards, personal loan, auto loan, I already paid all that off this year. Paying off over $31,000 of debt in less than 3 months is a pretty big accomplishment in my book. Got a really good plan in place, and I have made a lot of changes in my life, in my spending, and my finances to make sure that I'm able to pay off those student loans and get debt-free as soon as possible.
I've been paying my student loans for about 3 years now, and I just went on here on the internet and I checked my balance. The balance has not budged. Where are you applying my payments? Are they on? How? Oh, this has got to stop, Jesus. Scott Eddie, you paid for all my debts. Amen. You got to take these too.
I have a student loan. I took out a student loan when I was a wee little baby 18-year-old and didn't know better. And I've already paid $12,000 to this loan. As you can see, the original amount was $12,050. And I currently still owe $10,005.
I feel so disheartened. I was just looking at my day one video of starting this journey, and I have paid $270 towards my balance since then. And I have only paid off $154 of my balance. I just am so frustrated. And this is why student loans are a scam.
Why can't we just simply forgive the loans and call it done? What is the big deal? Why is it that people resist student loan forgiveness? Aside from the fact that there are people out there who believe that, hey, you took out the debt, you should pay for it. And I can't disagree with that. Let's look at it from the less of the emotional standpoint and more of the economic standpoint. Student loans is a business, and who runs it? Of course, it's run by the federal government and the banks. Here is the bottom line. If student loans were simply forgiven, the banks that granted the loans would not make the income that they were, in essence, promised when they gave you the loan. Let's use me as an example. I had an $85,000 student loan for 2 master degrees. I was supposed to pay on those master degrees. One of them was from the University of Phoenix, Organizational Management. The other one was University of South Florida in English Education. I was supposed to pay on those degrees from the age of, hold your breath, 36, 37, respectively, to the age of 62. In essence, 25 years. Now then, during that 25-year period, the bank, and I had Wells Fargo at the time, this is before public service loan forgiveness came about and all of that. Okay, this is like in early 2006, 2007, right around there, maybe 2008. I was supposed to pay Wells Fargo $80,000 over that 25 years. That was, I believe, what the estimated amount was. Now then, with student loan forgiveness, the federal government comes along. They forgave my $110,000 student loan in 2022. They forgave it. So about just short of 3 years ago, almost. It's not been that long. That means the bank is not getting the money that they were originally promised, because the federal government steps in and says, hey, we're going to go ahead, we're going to cover your loan, and we're going to forgive it. Now then, because during the time, from the time of Wells Fargo when I had my loan and then I consolidated, went to the federal government, and I went under PSLF. This is why you have to understand, when you take on student loan debt, the bank, Sally Mae, and everybody else, they are not your friend. You are clearly a source of profit to them, and to some extent, rightfully so. They're giving you money so you can go to school, achieve your dreams, whatever. The problem, however, is that when your loan is forgiven, somebody comes along, I don't care if it's Joe Biden, okay, comes along and says, hey, we're going to forgive those loans. Well, the banks, perhaps rightfully, understandably, okay, whatever, they don't want that done. Because if someone, and we'll use Biden, okay, comes along and says, hey, we're just going to forgive all these loans, well, the banks may get the initial principal back. They're not going to make all the money, the millions of dollars in interest that they can make every year from all of these different people being in debt. This is why it's not just so easy to say, hey, we're going to forgive everybody's loans. Because, and I recognize it, having had my student loan forgiven, it comes at a cost to someone else. And that's why. You have to understand, folks, the banks, they want you to be student loan illiterate. They don't want you to really understand what you're doing and how it works. That's your job to understand it. It's my job to understand it. And I failed at it initially. So hopefully that answers some people's questions on how come they just can't forgive it. It's not that it can't be done. It actually can. But the banks, I'm sorry, they're not giving up that luxury vacation so you can get your student loan forgiven just a little bit earlier.
I have $45,307.70 in student loan debt. Over the last 12 months, I have paid $7,721.69 towards these loans. Now, actually looking at the numbers, I have paid $3,532.28 towards the principal of this loan. Yet, $4,189.41 is actually towards the interest that I have on these loans, making my $600 payment I have a month, $300 approximately going towards the actual payment of this loan, and the other $300 simply going to interest. Now, my $600 payment a month equates to about 20% of my income.
If you take out more than this much in student loans, you will be poor. According to Forbes, the total amount of student loans you take out should be your first year's salary divided by 1.5. So if you're a psychology major making $40K when you graduate, your student loans should be around $27,000. Anything more than that, you will struggle to pay off.